Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Faith Family Fulfillment. I am your co-host, Chris.
And I'm Suzanne.
And as we sit here arguing with each other for the last 30 minutes about getting this podcast studio ready, we feel fully prepared to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
That is grit and resilience in marriage.
Yes.
You want to pray us in?
Sure. Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to sit elbow to elbow and even in light of being frustrated, still be able to laugh and love each other. Help us to share our points and perspectives in the knowledge and hope that somebody who needs to hear it will, and it will spark some conversation and thoughts in their life as well. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. So, grit and resilience.
Yes.
How would you define them?
Can I cheat a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. I will sum it up as keeping your passion level high as you persevere the challenge.
That's good. I like that one. So why do you think, we specifically said we want to talk about how grit and resilience applies in marriage. I mean, you hear all the time, lots of motivational speakers talk about grit and how important grit is and grinding it out. But I don't see marriage specifically as grinding it out. But I do believe that grit and resilience matter in marriage. Mm-hmm. So why do you think grit and resilience are important?
Because I think you have to have a certain level of stick-to-itness about you. Mm-hmm. Because grit is about continuing on even when it sucks. Right. And resilience is how do you get back up when it's challenging or when it's seemingly impossible to move forward.
Right. How have you seen it benefit us to have grit? And do you think we always have? I mean, we're going into a season of celebrating our 29th anniversary, wedding anniversary, being together for 32 years. How do you think, have we always had it? Or better yet,
I think that's self-explanatory, and have we always had it because we're still here. We're right. Not.
But do you think? So, as I'm asking that question, in the beginning, right, putting ourselves back 29 years ago in marriage, would you have thought about grit and resilience at that point?
Yes, but not in those words.
Okay, tell me why.
So my perspective is you don't go into marriage to quit. So, I mean, yes, but not in those words. Right. So you figure it out.
Right. So how do you think that over the last 29 years we have developed grit and displayed it, or developed resilience and displayed it?
A resilience? Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. How many examples do you want me to give you?
I mean, just the highlights.
No, I won't give examples.
We don't have time for 29 years worth.
No, I won't give examples. I'll just say that it's, life's hard sometimes. And I think it's resilience in marriage is the ability to go to bed at night and get up the next morning and get after it just as hard as you did the day before. Mm-hmm. Without living in the rear view of what was in the day before. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they get so stuck in the past and the things that they've just not dealt with or put to bed, and they lose the ability to get back up and move forward because they're so weighted down by everything that they're carrying along with them every single day. I think if you look at it in terms of like you get to get up every morning. And if you get to get up every morning, then you should get up with the passion and excitement that you're going to get something done that day, even if getting that something done that day is moving the needle just a small little amount, like just a teeny, like a centimeter, even if you're just moving forward that much, not letting the things that happened to you the day before or the week before, year before, or in your childhood or whenever dictate your ability and your enthusiasm and your excitement to face that next day with the courage and the gumption and the grit or whatever it takes to get there.
Okay. So for the marriage side of it, you know, because I mean, I get it. So when people are struggling with just life is lifing. But when it comes to the experience and the relationship of a marital relationship, how do you think you develop? Because I think we've developed some grit. I think we've developed some resilience through some experiences that we've been through. How would you suggest, without having to go through the pain of some experiences, to develop the grit and resilience to handle experiences? Meritable.
You just used a lot of words to ask that question.
Because I was thinking through it as I was asking it, because if I see the title of this and it's grit and resilience or whatever we call it, and I get in, okay, great, you're 29 years in, which means you've had some resilience and you've got some grit, but how'd you get it?
So, spoiler alert to everybody out there. You asked me about this. How many days ago? Was it Sunday?
Yeah, I think it was Sunday.
So that was like, 5 days ago? So I've had some time to think, and I have gotten my thoughts collected.
That's the reason I thought it would be a good idea to throw you the subject early.
So, okay. So I think that in marriage, part of grit and resilience, and I'm going to number these. I have 8 of them. So,
wow. You have put a lot of thought.
I have put a lot of thought in it. Shared purpose and covenant. I think it starts there.
That's good.
And it's not. We've had the privilege of attending a lot of marriages. We've had the privilege of mentoring and coaching and counseling quite a few married couples. And I think that when you talk about having a shared purpose and covenant, that takes you away from it not just being about your feelings. Because if you're living in your feelings, then you're not going to be living with commitment, because your feelings change.
Right.
I mean, did the sun come up or is it raining outside? Did the dog throw up in his crate or, knock over his water? I mean, like just things. And if you get in your feelings, then you're not focusing on what's the most important part. And it's not you.
Right.
It's just not you. And I think that when you're talking about grit, that helps you when you look at your purpose and your covenant. When your emotions aren't playing nice, that gives you the ability to push through to the next moment. And I think that's where I've seen a lot of people just kind of like throw in the towel because they can't get out of the fact that their feelings were hurt to move on to the next thing.
That's good. What's number 2?
Well, I'm not done number 1.
Oh, okay.
So I told you, I've given this a lot of thought. So you just have to bear with me. We might even go past our 30-minute timer here. Resilience in that. And I think we've said this to, I know we've said it to our own child. And just remember why you chose each other in the first place.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, when Avery and Thomas got married, I told them to hold this as an anchor point. Yep. They're coming together as a new creation, and don't forget today is the anchor point of that new creation. And because I think it does help you remember the why, the purpose, the reasoning, the covenant, all of that, if you set that as an anchor.
Because when we've asked people in the past, why did you pick them? Okay, now, would you still pick them based on those things? I think that's important.
Sure, absolutely.
Why did you pick them? So number 2 that I came up with was grit and resilience help you weather hard seasons, because you're going to face stress. Life is going to life, whether it's your parenting, your loss, grief, illness, unmet expectations, which is a big one, financial stress and strain. Resilience in those situations looks like adapting together as a unit versus pointing the finger and blaming and shaming.
Yeah, I think it's good, because we have, like you just named off, a plethora of things that you'll go through, and we've experienced every single one of those seasons. Like, but we have experienced them, as you said, together. Because when one of us is feeling it, the other one usually is feeling it, or at least they should be.
Yeah. And when it comes to grit in that particular situation, it's refusing to let whatever life circumstance you're sitting in that moment be divisive.
That's good.
And it's always, I forget who said it. I wish I could give them credit. But it's not you, then me, and then the thing. It's you and me together against the thing, whatever that thing is.
That's good. Because I think that's I'm glad it's funny you said those words. Because I think that's often what gets missed is the you and me together against that thing, whatever that thing is.
Right.
Whether it is, like you said, financial hardships or parenting issues or grief, or it's how are we approaching this situation together?
Yeah. Because I think we've said it to each other. I don't know how many times I've lost count, but hey, I'm on your team.
Yeah.
I'm on your team. I am your teammate in this. Choosing growth over comfort. We talk about that a lot. When it comes to grit, it's leaning into the uncomfortable and often necessary things that you have to deal with and go through for the sake of your relationship, not because of it necessarily, but for the sake of it. And then resilience is bouncing back after a failure, and you learn and you move on instead of being resentful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about how often that we as a family unit choose to do those things together. You know,
We look
and
weird.
I will get that out at the end, because I do want to end on that note of the growth in grit and resilience as a unit of family, not beyond just the two in the marriage. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And then the power of forgiveness and grace. So without grace, mistakes harden into bitterness. So grit is practicing forgiveness even when it feels undeserved.
Yeah. So that's I'm glad you brought this one up. So I think, we obviously, this podcast is about how does faith play into the dynamic of family, and how does faith play into, like, what role does it play in our fulfillment? And it's very easy with a human brain and a human heart and a human's issues, like we're born with issues, to move away from the idea that someone else other than us deserves grace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we saved by grace. Like, it's not that we deserve it,
Right.
but we've been given it.
Right.
And I say all the time, the idea is not to become a reservoir, but a river of that. And how do you display it in a way? And I think the first place you need to display that is with your spouse.
Right.
Forgive
quick.
Yeah. And, Paul says in Ephesians, it specifically says that the husbands is love your wives as Christ loves the church. Well, he loves us, never ending and full of grace. And that's a very difficult thing to do as a human, which is why I think Paul gave us very good instructions about that. So
yes, forgive even when you feel like it's undeserved.
Yeah, because we didn't deserve it.
No, and the thing about forgiveness is, it's for you.
Right.
You're not forgiving the other person because you want to excuse them from whatever it was, whatever the offense was. The forgiveness is for you, so that you can move forward in your purpose and in your plan. And the resilience part of that forgiveness and grace is allowing trust to be rebuilt and not living in the past.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to bounce back on that.
And you said earlier we've walked some couples through this, and I think it's because we've gone through it ourselves, and getting both or either one or both spouses into this season of step out of that spirit of unforgiveness and move into this, what we're talking about is forgiveness and grace. Yeah.
And I think to your point on that, when we stop being offended personally by something and realize that it has nothing to do with us, and that's hard. That's really hard, especially in marriage, because you feel like it had to be done on purpose. Like you knew what you were doing. You had to have done that on purpose. But in reality, you were just the recipient of somebody else's sin in that moment, and the sin isn't against you. Right. So let it go. You are special, but you are not that special. So just let it go and move on.
Sometimes the other person's just hangry.
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. Yeah, and sometimes you can say that. You got about 10 minutes. 10 minutes. But back to topic. Emotional and spiritual endurance. When it comes to grit and resilience, building resilience means that you are taking care of your spiritual and emotional health separately and together. Because people always say, well, I want to find my other half. No, you have to be whole before you can be someone's other half.
That's good.
And you have to take care of your own spiritual and emotional needs first. It's like putting the oxygen mask on your face first. You have to take care of you first. You cannot pour if you are empty.
That's true.
Grit would be the perseverance, daily perseverance in prayer, faith, love, even when your feelings aren't feeling it. I know we talked about feelings first, but even when your feelings aren't feeling, if you're not feeling loving towards your spouse, do it anyway. Be prayerful, be faithful, love them even when you don't feel loving to them. Because God still loves you.
Right.
Even though you could be hangry in that moment, or you're just being the biggest turd of the day, you have to keep going. But one of the things I made a note here was couples that grow spiritually together develop a much deeper bond that can withstand much harder storms.
Oh, I 100%. I mean, I haven't not agree with anything, but that I'd say for us, that's been a big, big factor. I think there's never been I don't know if there's ever been a season that we wouldn't have called ourselves. The word spiritual is not what I want to say, but I mean, we were believers. Like both of us came to Christ early. But I don't know that we were doing it as a unit for a long time. And I talk about all the time the summer of the year that I got kicked in the throat with that hard question about my daughter's marrying a man like me. Like, I believe it's around that time that we really started to say, hey, this is a joint.
This isn't us.
This is a joint venture. And where are we headed and where can it go? And what I see is that there's way less peaks and valleys and more molehills and ruts. Yeah. I mean, just shallow little ruts. It's drastically different. But I think it's because we draw our strength from something well outside of us.
Yes. And I think we've gotten to the point where we understand it isn't about us.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. Healthy communication and conflict.
What's that?
I don't know. Gosh. Conflict is inevitable, but destruction is optional. Right. Burning it down is totally optional. The grit that I put in my note was staying in the conversation when it would be easier to shut down and walk away.
Say that one more time.
Yeah. We're both guilty of that. We're both guilty of that.
Yes, we are.
We are both guilty of that. Resilience is coming back to the table again and again and again with humility. Yeah. Even if a lot of times people will say, well, even if they didn't say they were wrong, who cares?
Right.
Really, who cares?
Yeah.
Investing daily, not just in crisis. That's
a big one. It is a big. That's a big one. Because I think, you use the term "life is lifing." I think when life is lifing, that whatever's the lifing at the moment takes over all of our vision, all of our mind's headspace, all of our hearing. Like, we hear things differently, we say things differently, and it can cause us not to put in that daily investment. It can be a situation where you're just not even willing, And I think if it's just, hey, I'm going to make that daily deposit.
Yep.
One of the things that when in the men's ministry, and I know you'll remember this from TMP, we talk about soul relationships. All the vertical relationships we have are soul relationships. Well, marriage is that. Our children are that. And we ask in it, when you start asking yourself, what are you known for? And could it get to the point where you're known where that when you walk in a room, you're looking for somebody to serve and pour into?
Right.
And that takes a lot of resilience, and that takes a lot of grit, right? But if you know that when the one that God puts you with is the one that you should be pouring into and serving first and foremost,
right?
And how do you do that on the daily?
Mm-hmm.
And finding just some way to say, hey, I want to invest in you today.
Right.
And over the course of time, your integrity comes from that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's the same with all vertical relationships, but people begin to know that's who you are because you've poured into them at some point.
Right.
And
the note that I made was grit is showing up daily, even in mundane tasks, as an act of loving somebody. So even, especially this is for the moms out there who are feeling like they are doing 100 things every day and nobody has said thank you yet. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. Because what you don't realize in those mundane tasks every single day of picking up the toys and washing the dishes and changing the diapers is an act of love and service in this season. And if you are, we have, I'll say 2 grown children, even though one is still in college and one that's still at home with us that we have to taxi around everywhere. Even those small things of, taking them to school every day or, sending a care package to school or, whatever it is, those small acts of service and kindness are paying dividends.
Sure.
They're paying dividends. Yeah. And what that's actually doing is creating the resilience from the overflow of those things. Right. Because if you've been pouring into someone, even if it doesn't feel like it, when life throws that rogue wave at you, you're going to be able to stand up and dust yourself off a little bit faster because of the overflow that you already have built up.
And I think the overflow is beyond you. And what I mean by that is when you're more focused on developing a deeper relationship with God, the pouring in that comes from that, from Him to you, and letting that be what's flowing out. It's literally a supernatural thing. Like you're getting poured into because you're spending quiet time in prayer and listening and learning and reading, and all of that is to fill you up,
right,
so that it can flow through you into those around you that you love. And it could be, like you say, it could be the simple little drips. Gabrielle had a really rough summer, and I told somebody, I really hate it for her, but it's put her and I in a situation where we've talked more in the last 45 days than we have probably talked in 2 years.
Right.
Because I knew she needed it. Mm-hmm. And so I made space for it. That sounds ugly, like I put her on my calendar. That's not what I'm saying. I just made sure that, hey, when she asked me for this one thing, which was, hey, can you call me in the mornings.
Right.
And it became a thing. And if I didn't call her, she'd call me.
Right.
Right. So it was this active every single day of, what do you need from me today? How are you feeling today? Like all of that. And we're in a different space than we've been since she was probably 5 or 6, 7 years old. Even Avery said that. So I think
you're
it's
so much alike.
Yeah, but again, it was that I knew she needed me,
right?
And like I'm going to pour into that,
right?
But it was not me that was pouring into her. It was the flow of what she needed to hear, Bible verses and references and biblical references, and how are you praying, and all those, all of the conversations really revolved around, are you having conversations with God daily? I know you're having a conversation with me, but are you having a conversation with God daily? I know she's praying. That's not what I'm saying. It's, are you asking more from Him for the answers, not me? So, but it's the point of all that was, as you grow individually, spiritually, the overflow becomes supernatural out of you into others and those that are around you.
And sometimes that shows up by just simply being the calm one in the room.
Sure. Absolutely.
When things are going crazy. Yep. For sure. So the last thing that I had on my thing for grit and resilience, especially in marriage, is hope as a fuel source.
I didn't mean to skip ahead. That's kind of what I was just talking about.
Yeah. So when you have hope, you're not going to give up too soon. You're gonna push through. You're gonna figure it out. You're gonna get up the next day, and you're gonna keep going with the same level of passion and commitment. And I borrowed this from somewhere, and again, I didn't reference it. I should have. But grit is believing the best days are ahead, not behind you.
That's good.
Because I think too often we hear, well, it used to be like. It used to be like. And, I mean, if I go back and say, well, I mean, it used to be like when we first started dating and we first got married, da-da-da. Well, that was before we had kids. That was before we were both working crazy hours. That's before we had to choose to spend time together.
Still in fairy tale land.
And it would be great to go back there occasionally. And we do when we take our, getaways and stuff. That's what we do. We kind of go back and we don't forget we have responsibilities. We just make sure they're all taken care of before we leave. But too often, I think that we look in the rear view and we feel like, okay, those were the good old days, rather than looking ahead, going, no, like I'm just going to keep going because the best days are still ahead of me. And then when you look at it in terms of resilience, you're finding joy in the journey, in the process. You're not just looking or waiting. I think waiting would probably be a better word. You're not waiting for a certain outcome. You're not driving to get your way in a certain outcome. You're just knowing that there's going to be a lot of good stuff along the way. And I think if you're only looking like behind you or so far ahead of you at a certain thing, you're like, if I get there, I'll be happy. Or if I get this, I'll feel satisfied or fulfilled or whatever. Like you miss all of the stuff along the way.
Yeah. I think about the couples that have asked us to help them. And I think every single one of them, we've asked them, do you hope that this gets resolved? Whatever they're going through, right? And most often, if there's one that's been offended and an offender in the situation, the offender is usually surprised that the offended says, yes, I have hope. And you can see the body language shift when the person who has the most, I'll call it, justification to be feeling like they're feeling, says, I still have hope for it to be better. It's like, oh my gosh, they have hope. And you can see, I fully believe that's one of the way God's working, is that we have hope through Him. Your verse is about that, right? We have hope in this anchor, right? Well, if you can apply that into a marriage conversation, do you have hope in the anchor of your marriage? Like, that's taking that verse out of context, but even putting that at the center, your marriage at the center of it, and saying, do you want this to get better? And if they feel like there's hope, then man, it's pretty undefeated hope, right? It's just like you said, it's when you lose hope that it really gets scary.
Because there's nothing future focused in those moments. But that's my 8. So I'll let you add your thoughts.
Well, I don't know that I have thoughts. I mean, one of the things, when we talk about grit and resilience, some of that, we talked about how individually you're building it for the benefit of the marriage, right? And in some cases it's what we talked about, and now it's a we, and how are we doing this together? And I think what I wanted to end up talking about is one of the ways you can build some hope and resilience and grit and all that stuff is to do some really hard crap together on purpose. We have chosen I think I kind of volunteered everybody this is what we would do.
That's fair.
that is fair. I think doing hard things as a family, number one, it creates an incredible memory, even if you fail. Like, it creates an incredible memory of what it's like to be struggling with those that are the closest to you, right, that love you differently than anyone else on the planet, and to be there to encourage and to help coach and to love, like all those things in a hard moment. The first time 29 and 29 came into my life was in 2020, and being forced to do it virtually even. And you didn't participate with me as like climbing those stairs, because I had to do it on a stair mill. But you were there to help support me when it came to food and water and hydration, not just water, but hydration as a whole, clothing changes, hot baths when my knee was blowing up the size of, my head, like all of those things. Well, then, the next year I did it with a group of men. The next year we had planned to do it together because I had turned 50 that year, and circumstances outside of our control kept us from being able to do that. We did the training together, though. We trained together that year.
With an injury.
With an injury. That's right, because you broke your leg.
Yep.
So even the training for hard things together builds a different type of resilience. And for those that are listening, what I'm talking about is an event called 29 and 29 Everesting, where you get 36 hours to climb the height of Everest, which is 29,029 feet. And they happen all across the country. And that's kind of become our family thing. So 2 years ago, we attempted it for the first time with Avery, because we said, hey, as you graduate college and you enter the next stage of your life, we'll come alongside us. And none of the three of us completed it that year. It has about a 50% fail rate.
Right.
And then last year, we go to Canada, to Whistler, Canada, and we've talked about it on here. We brought Avery on to talk about it because she actually completed it and got to achievement of the big red hat. Or not the big red hat, but the red hat, the famous red hat that you can't buy. You can only earn. You can only earn. But even this year, you're doing it by yourself as a participant, and Avery and I are going as volunteers to help those that are on the mountain. But what I've seen this year, and it's not that you weren't, and this, I don't want this to sound like I saw you not put in effort last year. That's not what I mean. But you decided to make it a fundraiser, right? You said, I want to do 29 and 29. I want to do it alone because we didn't have a kid entering to the next stage of life.
Right.
That's next year.
I'm not going to make you give up your summer.
Yeah. And it is a full summertime of training. And you said, but I want to make it a fundraiser for the ministry. And I told somebody, I was having this conversation about, it's probably a month ago. It's one of your first really long, it's like 6.5, 7 hour training days. It was the week you trained like 23 or 24 hours, whatever that, over the course of the week.
Yeah, that's been like about 4 or 5 weeks
ago.
Yeah,
so it's been a while ago. Yeah. And I told them, I said, what it's shown to me is when Suzanne has a purpose behind something, not just the event itself, but what is the event benefiting, then there's a different level of grit and resilience in her. And I don't mean that you didn't have it last year. It's just been like you've hit the training doggone near every single day. And I've seen it be different. And I guess the reason to take that back to how does that apply to a marriage? We have developed grit and resilience in our marriage through experiences, mistakes, hardships. I mean, children being born early. Like, there's a lot that's going into our marriage of building resilience, but individual resilience matters as well.
Yes.
And what I've seen is that still takes something that you believe in, a purpose, a singular, hey, this is the end thing that's going to benefit from me going through this hard thing, really, really hard, difficult thing. And if you take that same idea and say, what's going to benefit from me gaining grit, showing resilience, doing those 8 things you talked about, the end result is I'm going to have a ridiculously fulfilled marriage. Like the end result, right? There's a benefit at the end result, and that is a picture of possibility for your children, if you have them, because they're catching that lesson of marriage takes grit and resilience. They're catching that lesson.
Right.
They're seeing you display it. But I think if there's anything to be learned from doing one thing on your own is, okay, well, I've done this because I chose this end result. Now, how can I apply this ridiculous amount of grit and resilience in this thing for me and apply it to the we of a marriage?
I think that the biggest takeaway that you can have when you do something hard and you master something is not to forget that you get to, rather than you have to. Because we hear it a lot. Well, I have to go do this and I have to go do that. And pressure is a privilege, whether it's in your marriage or in an event or, at work or whatever. Pressure is the privilege, and it's an opportunity to dig in and see what you're made of. And I think in marriage, especially, if you don't ever dig in and see what you're made of, then you're just going to be the weakest link.
Well, that's good.
Because you're never going to know. How much can I withstand? I don't know. I've never tried anything. Well, then go try something hard. See where you break.
That's good. Well, I hope that this speaks to you. We're going to put the link in the show notes of this particular episode to the fundraiser for the well, so that there is that big, huge, hairy goal that you threw out there.
BHAG.
It is a big one. And it's 50. And you said, you asked me, what do you think? And I said, what's God putting on your heart? And you said $50,000. And I said, well, then put that out there. Let's make that a thing. And so if you would like to participate in giving to the ministry of the well, and what that would go to would be towards the doula services.
It would fully fund both of our big community initiatives for a year.
So that's what I told somebody, because they said, where did the number come from? This is what Suzanne laid on her heart. I said, but then when you look at it, it's a year of fully funding the things we do that are community oriented for the year. So every penny matters. It's funny, we got that notification of the penny today of not for the well, but for something else. And I was like, whew, man, that retirement plan is just racking it up. It's racking.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for your 8. Thank you for showing up for the well the way you are right now. And I believe in you. I think it's going to be wild. I was the first one to jump off and try to do 29 and 29. I'll be the third one with a hat, because you're going to have yours at the end of this one. I fully believe that.
We hope so.
Yeah. I'll praise that. Okay. Lord, thank you for the grit and resilience and the hope that we have that flows directly from our relationship with you. For without you, nothing's possible, but with you, everything is possible. And we know that when we put our hope in you, that we just look at life differently. We attack problems differently. And as Suzanne said, when we know that there's a singular purpose in the covenant, that covenant's not just with one another, but it's with you. And that's the best anchor that we could hope for. We hope that this message has reached those that need to hear it. We hope that you have gotten all the glory in the story that we've talked about, because that's where we want it all to go. In Jesus' name I pray.